The number one way that you're going to see any success is by honing in on a niche that loves you.
And if you have the interest to learn, then I would say follow that ping, follow that path, and figure out how to become exceptional at that one thing.
From To Be Magnetic, this is the Expanded Podcast with your host, Lacey Phillips. As the leading destination for neural manifestation, we dispel the woo-woo in order to help you create real, tangible results based on neuroplasticity, psychology, epigenetics, and energetics. Our goal is to normalize the practice of manifestation and empower you to get into the driver's seat of your life in order to manifest the experiences, relationships, and things that most align with your authenticity. Part of our manifestation process entails expanding past your limiting subconscious beliefs. Therefore, by tuning into this podcast with interviews from experts, thought leaders, spiritual teachers, scientists, and those with neural manifestation success stories, you're starting the process of expanding your subconscious in order to see to believe that anything you desire is possible. And by pressing play, the process begins.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Expanded. Jessica here. So you guys loved our sort of mini masterclass on the financial episode, and we decided to kind of expand that and take it another step further and cover more about career. So we get a lot of questions about freelancers, people starting their own business, people manifesting, moving from their bridge job to the next step, and even people moving from corporate to their side hustle, or even how to set up a side hustle while you are working, how to connect your purpose with your passion. I mean, all the time we get these questions. So we decided to bring on our marketing director, Grace Abbott, who has a lot of experience in this. And we're really going through and answering all of your questions around this topic. And really, it is a mini masterclass on how to create the career you want. And we give a lot of tangible tips of kind of the nuts and bolts of how to go from like, okay, I know I want to do something, but I don't know what that is. So A, identifying how to find that, especially utilizing the work and authentic code and all of those pieces. But then two, what are the steps you have to put in place? What's the aligned action? And as you'll hear in this episode, it's the same as any other manifestation process. It is that unblocking those limiting beliefs, it's expanding, finding people who are doing what you're doing, getting in contact, trying to understand their skill set, and then it's taking that aligned action, reaching out to the people, putting yourself out there, and taking those steps that feel in alignment with your self-worth. And I'm just selfishly really excited for this episode because one thing that I just love and am so obsessed with, it's part of my impact, which is one of my authentic code pieces. I love strategizing on how to do things better, more effective, how to think of a new way, how to grow, basically just like strategy when it comes to business and career. And it's something that Grace and I geek out on all the time. We wind up on phone calls of like, what if we try this? And how do we try this? And it's like this big picture thinking. And I feel like I've absorbed a lot of that and listened to tons of business podcasts over the years. But the one piece that a lot of them are missing are that in between. It's like they'll share how they got to their multi-million-dollar company and they'll share where they started out, but what does that in-between phase look like? What is the roots on the ground? And so this is just a tiny taste into what that chapter can look like for you and some really actionable tips of how to navigate, how to cultivate that mindset along the way when you are picking up skills, when you are learning skills, and skill sets that you can learn while you're growing into your most authentic self. So I know it's going to be so much info on this one. We will have a part 2, which will talk about pricing and get even more into the nitty-gritty of setting things up. But I know you guys are going to love this one, so enjoy.
And now, a word from our partners. If you're not familiar with Byte, they are an incredible company that I think is really, really becoming a game changer in the grooming space for being not only non-toxic and fantastic in that vein, however, incredibly sustainable. Their product that's really blown me away the most is the toothpaste bites, which is amazing because they come in a glass jar and then they send you the refills in a completely compostable packaging that is zero waste. On top of that, what makes this toothpaste really special is that they have the option of a fluoride, which is an all-natural fluoride, or a completely fluoride-free version. They also use a mineral that is proven to strengthen and restore our white teeth. It strengthens and remineralizes enamel. It helps fight sensitivity, which I think a lot of people, because I think they're brushing incorrectly, are sensitive to. I also really appreciate that I think they've really cornered the market in the fact that the Bite toothpaste only has the actual ingredients you need to brush your teeth, none of the fillers or the things to add texture. Many toothpastes have a ton of extra ingredients in order to just create that paste that is completely unneeded in order to stabilize the water in a squeeze. So if you remove the water and make these little pellets, you can remove all toxic and unneeded ingredients, which to me is brilliant. And I really appreciate the founder, Lindsay, that as she was surfing and traveling, she just discovered so much plastic in the ocean. And for someone who's been swimming in the ocean every day, this is something that's going through my mind daily. Seeing the reports of what's been happening to our ocean and marine life, it's really, really weighing on me living so close amongst the landfills, and you get the point. We certainly aren't completely zero waste at this household, but we support our local refill station for our cleaning supplies and have really tried to put one foot in front of the other day after day. And that's also why I really appreciate Bite's deodorant, because they have an unscented version. So somebody who's been on the Bean Protocol like myself for the last 3 years, to have that option is really rare, especially in the grooming space. And again, it's something that is refillable. It comes in a really fantastic case. A lot of the other less waste deodorants I've tried, they tend to fall apart really quickly, or you have to carry a jar around and use your fingers, etc., which is fine. However, I really appreciate what they've put into this packaging, that you can continue to reuse. So if you would like to check out Bite, like us on the team, who are really thoroughly enjoying it, go ahead and use the code, all caps TBM, for 20% off. And again, that's all caps TBM for 20% off. Lacey here, quickly interrupting the episode to talk about Bond Charge, formerly Blue Blocks, who we've been partnering with for a couple of years now, and I'm loving their rebrand, which I totally get as a business owner because they've expanded their product to be far more than just blue blocking glasses. And I love the meaning behind their new name, Bond, which we know, good. Charge is energy. I mean, so many new things to talk about, but it embodies the DNA of their product. Good energy, Bond Charge, which is bringing to life the optimal way you deserve to feel. And then red in their new logo, which is really, really beautiful, symbolizes life. And it's the color of their signature blue blocking lens, which is really beautiful that they kept that incorporation. So not to be confused, but Blue Blocks is now Bond Charge. One of their new products that I think is really, really cool, I used to, when hungover, and just when I would wake up puffy and I'd have to be on camera, I would take the old Swedish trick. I think I read this once that Kate Moss used to do this before photo shoots. I would take essentially an ice cube and rub it all over my face to try to depuff and to close the pores in. But of course, it was a mess of melting ice, and it would take multiple ice, and it would slip through my hands, etc. And they came out with a really, really incredible ice face roller that's super affordable. I've been using that daily. So lately I've been swimming in the ocean every single day, replicating my old water polo practice, only for like 20 minutes. And I was really horrible at water polo, but I just had never been in the best shape of my life as I had been at that time. And it's just been really wonderful for my body. So that threw me into this whole spin of, I guess, biohacking, but also beauty hacking. I think they go hand in hand. So essentially I would swim in the ocean, And then I would come home and use their red light therapy device called their Mini on my face. And then after doing that for a good 20 to 30 minutes, I would then, put all of my serums on, and I would use the ice roller, which I'm still using daily, on my skin. And it was bonkers. So combined with the beautiful minerals of the sea, pulling all of the positive ions out in the sea, and then doing the red light therapy, and then really, really sinking in the serums on my face and shrinking the pores with the ice roller. I mean, it's just really, really, really crazy what happens with both of those devices simultaneously. So super, super beautifying. And I just wanted to mention that because you all know that I sleep with their eye mask every single night. I've been talking about this for years and years and years, far before we ever partnered with them. I use their blue blocking glasses every single day, using literally the aviator ones right now as I'm recording this. So beyond all of their incredible light blocking and blue blocking devices and tools, I really think it's worth noting how beautifying their new red light therapy devices are, along with their new cold therapy. Highly suggest it. And for instance, the ice roller's $28.95. Like, it's just so affordable. And it's crazy. I even had now my dear friend who helps support us with Teddy. I was like, you have to try this, because she talked about how her old roommate would walk around her house always using an ice roller. She's like, I should maybe try that. And then she started trying the Bond Charge one. And I got a text, I think it was 2 days after she started trying it. And she was like, this is noticeably different on my face. So highly recommend if you're looking for a really cool, not only biohacking, there's so many benefits to using red light therapy that we understand, cell regeneration, reducing fine lines. Look, I'm still in the anti-aging. But if you can use these devices that are really beneficial on a cellular level, on a DNA level, that also happen to be biohacking and are good for you, it's just a win-win for someone like me who's far too sensitive to use any type of neurotoxins, such as Botox, etc. So I'm always looking for the perfect support that is super, super beneficial on a health level, but also provides really beautiful results. So just wanted to pop on and chat about that. If you're new to Bond Charge, use the code all caps magnetic, MAGNETIC, to receive 15% off your purchase. Again, that's all caps MAGNETIC to receive 15% off any purchase. All right, on to the episode.
We have our TBM marketing director, Grace Abbott, joining us. And so we kind of wanted to just go through and answer your questions from a manifestation and also just like an expert in this space lens. Welcome, Grace.
Thank you. So excited to be here and to talk about this subject. It's one of my favorites. And I know we have so many wellness entrepreneurs in the audience, a lot of coaches, a lot of people that want to launch a side hustle, leave their corporate job, are navigating that space between my corporate job, my bridge job, and my dream job. So we just asked everyone yesterday to submit their questions. We have a load of different topics and stuff to touch on. So Jessica and I are also really synergistic on this topic. So it will be cool to just kind of get in the groove and channel about it together.
Okay, so let's start here. And I kind of will bake in your story naturally as the questions evolve. But for someone who basically is thinking of starting their side hustle, or they want to maybe transition out of a 9-to-5 into working for themselves, they're not really sure what offering to give. That is a big one. It's like, what is the purpose? What do I offer? What is my strongest skill set? Can you talk a little bit about the importance of having a strong skill set and also the separation between purpose and career?
Totally. Yeah. So if I were in this spot of knowing, I'm kind of fed up with working for someone else, I want to launch my own thing and be my own boss, create more freedom, or maybe it's just that you want another stream of income. I think assessing the marketplace in terms of what skills do I already have? Can you write copy? Do you have great interpersonal skills? Do you know how to make something like candles? Or are you a great chef? Is there something you're always giving your friends advice on first sort of taking an inventory of all those things that you're naturally doing, that you enjoy doing, and forget about the things that you don't enjoy doing for now, because you're not going to want to start a business, as a copywriter if you know how to copyright, but you hate it. But, really just honing in on what are all my skill sets? What are the things I could contribute to the marketplace, and making a list of all of those ideas. But I don't think that's enough. I think you also need to assess the need of that for people. So really coming at it from a problem solution standpoint. So, if I make candles, what's the problem that I'm solving for people through my candles? Maybe it's rest and relaxation and it's dialing into the self-care movement. Or maybe it's most candles, are made of toxic ingredients and people don't know that. So I'm going to tell that story and give people a solution of non-toxic candles. So whatever you're doing, think about the problem solution aspect of that, because ultimately that's going to have to do with how you start to sell your product.
Talk a little bit about too, when you were kind of going into website design, how did you navigate basically mastering that skill set by self-facilitated work? And maybe also touch on your background a little bit. Like, what did you go to school for and all of that?
So I went to a liberal arts college, and just like any regular college student, had no idea what I wanted to do. I jumped around a lot of majors. I studied communications, art history. I think I was an English major for a while, and I would just sort of throwing spaghetti at the wall and trying to dial into things that I enjoyed. I liked creative writing, or I thought that maybe I would be a good radio host, or, I always liked art, so maybe that. And then ultimately, I remember I had this job working at the front desk at the gym, and all I would do is sit there and read blogs. And it was sort of like the rise of the blog era. Like all the OG bloggers were launching really cool stuff. And it was the first time we were kind of seeing the move away from traditional media in terms of it having to come in a newspaper or something more polished. And people were really starting to self-publish their stories, their tastes, all of that good stuff. And I found that really compelling. So I'd sit at the gym and read all these blogs. And then finally I was like, hey, I think I could make one of these. And I really got started by trying to create my own blog. And I had no skills in this department either. I sort of Googled like Photoshop classes, and, I started learning a little bit about WordPress, and ultimately kind of hacked together my own website just in a self-taught capacity. And it was really that learning through doing that made me realize, oh my gosh, maybe I want to study graphic design. So because of that, I actually ended up transferring to Parsons School of Design. And big life hack, if you want to go to Parsons and you're not wanting to apply for the bachelor's degree, you can get into the associate's program pretty easily by like designing a postage stamp and writing a paragraph. So I managed to hack my way into Parsons. And it was the first time I was really engaged in school, because I realized like I'm not a traditional student. I got horrible grades. I was so unfocused in class. And it wasn't because I wasn't intelligent or thoughtful. It wasn't because I didn't like learning. It was just like the traditional class structure and the homework, and me having to learn about things I didn't want to learn about for the sake of learning how to learn, just like didn't really work for me. But when I was in a setting where it was more of learning a trade, input, output, I do this, I see the result, and this is actually something I can monetize or sell, or a service that I can provide, that was really what motivated me. So I think for anybody who's, still in school or wanting to go back to school, really thinking about that distinction between like, do I need to go get a traditional degree? Is there a trade school I could go to? Is there something self-taught I could learn online? Can I learn this all from books and YouTube videos? There's no option that's greater or lesser. It just depends on what's most motivating for you to learn. So ended up getting my degree in graphic design, was really into it, started taking on little freelance jobs right away. And mostly what I did was I would reach out to bloggers and offer to make little roundup posts for their blog. So like maybe the theme this month is pointed shoes, right? I would like source all these pointed shoes from the internet and make them into a collage, and and then I would sell them the graphic. And so in college I had this little business of working with bloggers, and I charged them like $50 a post, and then I probably made like 200 of these. And so that's really how I got my way into experimenting with, I have this skill, I'm kind of interested in the blogging space. if I take initiative and reach out to these people, their graphics don't look good with the skills that they have, but maybe I could improve them. And so it's not like at that point I decided to launch my own business, but I sort of dipped my toes in the world of I'm a service and I can provide that for someone and get paid for it. And I can improve my skill set also while I'm learning. It's not that I'm a total expert yet, but this is super low hanging fruit. It's something I'm totally capable of. And then over time, I got better and better and better at creating these graphics, and it lended to a lot of other things. So I guess that's sort of how I got started in learning a skill and learning to monetize that skill. And then from there, I had all different kinds of careers, but that's kind of how I got my footing.
One of the things that stands out to me in that too is a lot of times it's almost like the need for a lot of people is, oh, I need more money. And then they're like, okay, how can I monetize something I already know how to do? And maybe they're not really looking at what they know how to do, but they're looking at what their interest is. And they might not have that skill set down packed. And that's where a lot of those limiting beliefs kind of seep in. Like if you're someone who's like, oh, why do I deserve to get paid for this? Or who's going to care if I have to share this? That's because you aren't confident in your skill set enough yet. And I think that does just come with time and practice. Is it giving away your services for free? Is it practicing stuff on your own? Is it giving away your services for a smaller fee than what you would normally charge when you felt more confident in your skill set? And then kind of letting that build upon itself. I think there's also this dynamic with a lot of people in the community who are sort of forcing their purpose onto their career path or forcing their purpose onto what they're monetizing of. So it's like you loved the blog post, right? But I don't know if you were like, I freaking love graphics. This is my
Right.
favorite thing in the whole world. You're just like, I love this space of blog posts. I'm not ready to like launch my own or do my own, or maybe I don't even want to do that, but I want to be involved in some way. How can I utilize a skill set that I know I'm good at, that I can get better at, and then monetize off of that, and not needing to marry your purpose with this one role that you're doing?
Totally. And, learning a new skill is satisfying in itself. It doesn't matter if it's the skill set that your soul came in here to deliver. But, just like growing up, you learned a sport and you got better and better over time. And maybe soccer wasn't your favorite thing in the whole world. Maybe you'd rather talk on the phone or AM your friends. But to watch yourself get better at something over time and to see the results, that's its own kind of joy. And it's also demonstrating to yourself, I have discipline, I have follow through, I'm learning humility, I'm learning teamwork, I'm learning how to cultivate a new skill and contribute that. And I think that's more the mindset you need to get into when you're sort of honing in on what is it that I want to do. Less like, I had a download from my soul that I need to now be a life coach, but I've never life coached before and I don't know how life coaching works and X, Y, and Z. Instead, I think it's figuring out, okay, if I were a life coach, what skills would I need, right? I need to be able to set up my own business. I would need to create session types that people could sign up for. So I'm going to start looking at other life coaches' sites to sort of understand how that looks. I need to first start facilitating some sessions for free for my friends to really hone my process and to start to get the confidence that when I life coach someone, it's beneficial for them and that delivers results. And I think if you can sort of gamify that process and make it a passion project first, then ultimately, you're going to garner the confidence to be like, wow, I have a system set up now. I've done 20 life coaching sessions. I have great testimonials from my friends. Now I actually have the confidence to springboard forward and decide to start charging for this. Just like my test ground was recreating websites, I wasn't doing that to sell to clients. I was doing that to learn. I heard a great saying when it comes to business and learning new skills, you want to think about replicating and then iterating. So you want to look around at the marketplace and see who's doing it in a good way. And then you want to replicate what they're doing, even if you're not selling it. And I'm not saying copy anything at all, but how can you replicate the structure and see, can I actually operate within this structure that I know is working? And then from there, you want to iterate and make it your own. So I think seeing the skill set piece as separate from whatever finding your purpose is, and then knowing that I'm learning all these great skill sets along the way. When I connect with my purpose, now I'm going to know how to launch it. I'm going to know how to turn it into a business if that's what I want to do. Nothing is really a waste of time, and you don't have to go crazy gunning to fulfill your purpose right away. First, I think it's smart to learn some skills that are going to help you create a business around whatever you realize that is.
And I think it's trial and error is so important when it comes to this stuff, because you're going to be a novice at no matter what you start out as. So you can't say like, oh, I can't do that because I'm not good at it. It's like, well, are you really passionate about it? And do you have the interest to learn? And if you have the interest to learn, then I would say follow that follow that path, and figure out how to become exceptional at that one thing. And then along the lines, you can start opening it up. Like Grace was saying, do it for free for these people, then start charging a nominal fee, and then it grows and expands upon itself. And then by the time you have a full-fledged business, you might be like, okay, cool, I'm done with this season, or now my product's evolved, or now I'm ready to move on to something else or whatever. But at least that you show that you can have that goal of, I want to learn this skill set, I want to figure out how to monetize off of that makes sense, and then go after that.
I will say, with all this talk of my career starting in graphic design, I'm not doing graphic design anymore, right? But that was the skill set that got me in the door at a lot of different companies, where then I could learn other skills. So, if I got a job as a graphic designer, I then started learning about marketing and copywriting. And I started thinking about the bigger business as a whole. And then I was able to make lateral moves in companies to move more into a marketing role or a strategy role. But I had a reason to get jobs. I had a reason people wanted to hire me, and I was providing value. Also, I think sometimes people realize, oh, I want to make a career shift and I think I want to do this, but they have no experience in that area. That's fine, but don't go after jobs for that just yet. Try and figure out how to get your foot in the door somewhere where you can be providing value and learning at the same time.
I've noticed that all the companies I worked for before is like, people will apply for positions that they have zero experience, but a lot of motivation and a lot of excitement to do. And it's like, when you're going to a company, you have to think about what the company would want. Even though you and you know what you're capable of, even if you haven't proven it yet, the company wants to put someone in a position where they can get the job done, they don't have to think about it, and it can take a burden off their plate. So how can you come to a company with a skill set or something already intact to demonstrate what value that you can offer to them at the same time? So if you're pivoting career paths, you're like, well, how do I get experience if I haven't done anything before? Kind of like Grace was saying, how are the little ways that you can start to demonstrate that skill set for free? I know one big thing is people in the social media space. They'll be like, oh, can we run your Instagram or do this or whatever it is? Okay, can I see what you have done for someone else or see what you have done for yourself? There needs to be a demonstration of skill set before actually connecting with those companies. Because a lot of times a company doesn't want to hire you to develop your skill. They want to hire you because you're fully baked at your skill. But the trick is, and how you can develop more skills, is you go in with the skill set you already know, knowing you want to grow and learn another skill set that you can pick up while you're at that company, and then move into that role over time. Talk about that a little bit, Grace, how you can take your 9-to-5 or whatever job and learn the skill sets you actually need to learn for your dream job.
I think Amanda Blair is a great example of this, one of our TBM coaches. And I know we get DMs and messages all the time from people that are like, I followed a ping, I should be a TBM coach, or they really dove into the work and now they have mastery of the work and they think that they should be coaching. Amanda Blair was our first ever coach, and she was such an amazing candidate because she had launched her own coaching practice and had been coaching for years and years before. So she had experience getting clients, facilitating sessions. She had demonstrated that she was great at coaching for relationships, and she'd honed in on that as her focus area. Plus, she was an expert in the TBM work. So when we were thinking of launching coaching, we reached out to her to be like, Amanda, you're already a coach. You know this work. Are you interested in coaching? So I think that's an example of a way that you could go about doing the job that you want to have before you're connecting with like the ultimate manifestation version of that. And for everybody who's DMing us to become a coach, please launch your own coaching practice and demonstrate that you're great at coaching. And that's where then you can connect with a company that might want to hire you because you're already a coach. You're not learning under a company on their dime. And I think, if you have a skill set like my little sister is very detail oriented, she speaks Spanish, and she's great at organizing things, right? Those skills don't necessarily instantly remind you of any particular role. But my sister can sort of hop into any role. Now she's our customer service agent who, is more largely thinking about operations and systems and how to make things better. And she can use that very organized, bilingual, on top of it, coming up with new processes all within that customer service role. And since she's able to do that job so efficiently, now she's able to help with other tasks because she's got that job on lock. She has some more free time. We can say, how about you help us with this editing project? Or can you look into new customer service platforms? And once you have one thing totally dialed in, it gives you the space to take on more things. And then companies start to see you as a valuable asset as a human rather than just a skill set.
100%. And even if you're thinking about, let's say, leaving a company and wanting to start your own freelance position, you have to realize that you're not just doing the role of whatever your business is offering, right? So if you're going to go start your own, let's say you're going to become a candle maker. I don't know why this example is in my head. I think we had a supported question about it. But let's say you want to go become a candle maker. It's not just making the candles, especially in the beginning. You are bookkeeping, you are figuring out how to market, how to sell, how to price. There are a lot of other skill sets that you need to pick up along the way. So if you are in a company, try to get access to those sectors or departments and see, how does this company run it? And then look out for expanders. Who are friends that are running it? How do they manage their books? Did they get an accountant? When did they become an LLC? What are some of the behind the scenes things that you can start to expand yourself in before you take that leap into your career full time?
Yeah, that was so huge for me. I think when I made the move from working at companies to becoming self-employed, I had a whole list of all of the comparable small businesses that were offering services like I offered. And I used those as ways to expand me and see, okay, they're positioning themselves like this. They're saying that they can do these skills. I can do those skills, but I've never thought of writing a sentence like that encapsulates my skill sets in that way. And I think sometimes you need a mirror to show you what you're good at too. We can get such tunnel vision thinking, okay, I'm just a graphic designer, I'm just a candle maker. But really, you're a problem solver. You're a great communicator. You're great at sales. You can have a strategic lens looking at the bigger picture. What are all of those kind of interpersonal skill type of things that actually make up all the aspects of why you're a great employee, would be a great business owner, would be a good candidate to be self-employed? It's much more than, like Jessica said, just I make the candle. Sort of all those pieces and figuring out how to describe and position yourself amongst all of those things.
There's also people who just are not good at certain aspects of that, right? So I remember the conversation with Morgan Harper Nichols, and she was saying, when it comes to bookkeeping, my brain just doesn't work like that. I am an artist, I create the art, but when it comes to that aspect, I knew this was not a good use of my time to be trying to study how to do my books the best way. So she knew right off the bat, she needed someone to do that for her. So knowing what your strengths and weaknesses are, is it worth pursuing how to get really, really good at doing your books, or really, really good at how to doing invoicing? Or do you know, okay, I'm going to have to be able to afford to hire someone in this role immediately because it's going to slow my personal process down?
Totally. And just knowing that is being a professional, is having discernment, is part of running a business. So if you are having to hire people to help you with those kind of things off the bat, it's amazing that you can delegate and afford to do that and all of that good stuff. And I think if you're not in a position where you can afford it, be scrappy, watch YouTube videos, figure out how to do it for at least your first 10 clients so that you make enough money that you can hire someone. But none of those things should paralyze you from being able to launch something, right? Basically, you can learn just about anything on the internet these days, and it's all about taking initiative if you're not yet at the place where you have the funds to delegate.
So I'm quickly interrupting this episode to invite you, if you're ready to start your manifestation journey, or if anything you've heard in our manifestation episodes has piqued your interest to begin. We have a la carte workshops in everything from the basics bundle, which is what we recommend to everyone who starts. It's the formula that actually teaches you how to manifest, unblocked inner child, and unblocked shadow. We also have a la carte workshops on love and money. But the real gem is the Pathway membership because it encompasses every single workshop we have. It's a year-long membership with full access to the few a la carte offerings we have and exclusive workshops not available anywhere else, such as the daily practice, which is what everybody in the Pathway uses, hopefully at least 3 times a week to daily, in order to truly create the new neural pathways that one needs in order to manifest, and houses the library of our deep imaginings, which is our unique hypnosis process that allows you to get into your subconscious and overwrite those old neural pathways, creating the new ones. You can use our special code EXPANDED, all caps, EXPANDED, to receive $20 off your first a la carte workshop purchase or $20 off your first month of the Pathway. Again, that's all caps, EXPANDED, EXPANDED. Okay, now back to the episode.
Okay, so we got this question a few times, but basically people are asking, how do I decide what the most sustainable aligned product service to offer my audiences? I have lots of ideas I want to nurture, but I feel like I'm spinning my wheels. And then kind of piggybacking off of that, someone had wrote, I have a deep soul knowing I'm meant to work for myself, but I'm an MG and I have tons of interests. I'm scared to pick just one thing. How do I turn it into a business while not feeling boxed into a certain niche if I change my mind?
Yeah, this is a great one. I think you need to start to see every business venture or idea as an experiment. You don't need to have some existential crisis that whatever you pick has such a marker on your identity and who you are. Everything you try, every new business you launch, or even blog post or social post that you put out there is just a test. So just start to see it all as a fun experiment so that you can start to test and learn to see what works, what you like the best, and what's most well received. And then coming back to that problem solution aspect that we were talking about at the beginning of the recording, there are so many great ideas and so many things that you could offer, so many creative ways that you could probably merchandise the skills that you already have. But what's the most needed for people? You know, where are people feeling the most desperate, the most without options? And then how is one of your skill sets or ideas meeting that need? And I see this a lot with people that are healers or coaches or consultants, and they're wanting to do something more holistic where they're offering like mind, body, soul healing or something like that. But that doesn't necessarily speak to the need of what a customer is presently going through, right? Maybe if you're super evolved and you know that that's what you need, that would resonate with you. But for the majority, what do they know? They know they're stressed out, they're anxious, they don't like their job anymore, they're in a bad relationship. What are sort of all of those symptoms that people are experiencing that you can be the solution for? So if you do have 10 million ideas, maybe put them all in a document and then underneath each idea, write the problem solution aspect to that business idea. And if it's not a compelling enough problem solution, cross it off for now, because it's most important that you're providing value through solving a problem for somebody. And that's what's going to be, you know, your whole marketing and sales pitch around that item is showing people how you can be the answer that they're looking for.
I'm also just getting the hit. It's like you really have to understand how much of transitioning into a different aspect of your career or trying out a new career has to do with ego and how you're perceived by others and how much it feels authentic and in how much it's like a smart business decision. You know, I think so many times there's like, I want to be seen as X. And it's like, okay, well, where am I actually at? Like, let's have a realistic check. Where am I at right now? Does starting at a different rung on the ladder or starting in a different position prevent me from ever getting to that goalpost? No, they're just learning skills along the way. And I think so many times people come up against blocks or they're hitting walls with their business or whatever it is. but it's like, how much are you trying to project onto your business of what it needs to be or what you need it to look like instead of just objectively looking at it?
I think about this all the time, even when I see, influencers on Instagram. I was really early to the whole, like, let's post lifestyle stuff on Instagram game. And, in like 2013, I grew a huge amount of followers, like posting things like avocado toast, right? And at the time, it was really like, it was a game. It was fun. And I was thinking about curating my feed. And I was looking at, what got the most engagement on Instagram. And I was trying those kind of posts. And then at some point, I sort of hit this wall of being like, none of this is really me. This has been an interesting marketing experience, but I don't really feel like putting myself out there in a way that's compelling enough that's going to make people want to keep following me for the long term. And then I sort of hit this wall of stopping and really hating my Instagram and not knowing what to do with it, but also having this crisis in my mind of like, I have the skills. I know how to do this. I'm watching my peers do it and they're growing and they're getting brand deals. And it was almost like this cross between ego and indecision that left me feeling like I just wanted to leave that area of my life altogether. And I know this maybe seems like kind of a dumb, superficial, 2000s problem, but it really was something that caused me a lot of internal turmoil because I would see these people that had way less skills and know-how than me, and they would be growing their accounts to like 100,000. And ultimately what I've realized were those people were just throwing spaghetti at the wall. They just kept showing up and they kept trying. And even if it was stupid or it didn't have a niche yet, or they weren't really saying anything, they just kept putting stuff out and learning what resonated and what did well. And ultimately, got to a place where they honed their process, where their photos looked better, where they established themselves as an expert. And you sort of have to put your ego aside to put in enough time till you get to the place where you really are an expert and you are good at something. And then people start to see that. So no matter what you're going to launch, it's not going to be perfect at first. You sort of have to like get started in a messy way and not be afraid to look and feel like kind of dumb for a while. Putting yourself out there in a new way is sometimes unsettling and embarrassing. And, that's where doing this work comes in to look at like, where did I pick up those limiting beliefs? Why am I feeling this way? Like you could really parallel path, doing the TBM self-work with whatever triggers come up on your business journey.
We got a lot of questions with the social media aspect too, and like marketing and being seen and all of that. But I think too, one thing that's really helped me, especially because I'm starting to like dip my toe into the TikTok world. And when I'm posting on Instagram, I feel like I'm talking to you guys. I feel like I'm talking to the TBN community. I like feel like I'm connecting with you. But TikTok, I'm talking to strangers. So it feels like a whole new world that I'm entering into there, and who knows what they're gonna think, say, etc. So as I'm dipping my toe in, one of the things I started to do is I made a list of what are all the things that someone could say to me about my TikToks that would rattle me. What kind of mean comments, hater comments, DMs, like what kind of things could I receive there that would kind of make me go, oh no, maybe I shouldn't post it, or oh, I should delete that. And kind of go through this exercise of the shadow work essentially, and going through the shadow workshop, but face all of those. Okay, cool. They said it to me. How do I feel? What does that hit on? Does that touch on an insecurity? Can I reprogram that? And kind of go through that whole list. And then you create this like, all right, great. Now when I go out there, I already dealt with how it could feel if they did this. And if they don't, amazing. You have to curate your mindset a lot before putting yourself out there to be seen, because it's really quite an unnatural thing for one person to be putting out info to millions of people. Like that is a very weird, obscure thing that we now have in our modern age. Usually it's like the small community or even in your high school, but not millions of people from all different walks of life all across the world. Very cool, but also there's a lot that comes with that as well. And so it's like, how do we bolster our self-worth in order to show up authentically and not show up based off of what the people in your comments are dictating to you, because I've definitely seen this with other influencers or people online. Their commenters would be like, oh, stop posting about this, so annoying. Well, if that's what that influencer likes posting about, they should keep posting. But instead they might hide or change their content because they want to keep their followers. You should be sharing for you and for the value that you can provide to others, not based off of individual commenters.
In that vein, the number one way that you're going to see any success is by honing in on a niche that loves you. You are somebody's hero, and somebody is going to resonate with exactly what you're saying, is going to find you inspiring, is going to want to buy the products that you're selling. And that's not the whole world. It's that particular niche. So what you need to figure out is, who is that customer? How do I find them? And how do I keep in mind that the more critics I have, the more successful I'm being, because finding a niche and speaking to them with enough conviction that it's going to convince them to keep following you and to buy your product and to keep tuning into what you're doing does require alienating some people along the way. And it's interesting what you're talking about because on my Instagram, I have a lot of people that follow me that I know or that I know came from this community or other communities that I've worked in. But I would way rather go on TikTok and blast myself out to a million people I don't know than have people I do know watch what I'm doing. Like, I sort of have the opposite syndrome of like, I don't care what Joe Schmo says about me because he's obvious just a loser taking his time commenting on stuff on TikTok. But like, if my friend from high school is looking at me being like, wow, Grace has really fallen off the deep end, that impacts me more than a million strangers on TikTok. So it's interesting how we're both struggling with a similar thing, but from different lenses.
It's interesting because I think I did have that feeling initially when I started putting myself out there like on Instagram, but I feel like I did it in waves. Whereas like I first started doing it when I was transitioning out of TV and film into wellness, and I would share about self-help and wellness and psychology stuff all the time just because I loved it. And I think that's when I was like, oh God, what are people at home going to think when I talk about therapy? And then I was like, okay, great. Some people are going to drop off. Other people will keep following. Oh, well, like I just need to get past it. But then I had that same moment coming into the TBM community. I'm like, oh no, like I definitely had the fear of like, am I good enough for them? Like, are they going to think I'm good enough to be on the podcast or whatever? And had to face all those fears and really process through that and allow my insecurities to get out of the way so I could focus on constructive feedback. Like if people didn't like what I was doing on the podcast, instead of saying, oh no, that's a sign I'm not good enough, they don't like me. It's like, okay, well, maybe I don't agree with everything they're saying, but how can I get better? What can I do to make my skill set better? How can I speak more eloquently or more confidently or more authentically? And then it just gets comfortable. And then now I feel safe within the community. I'm like, oh, they do like me. Okay, I like this spot. This is great, and you get better at it because I'm being more myself. The more I show my authentic self, the more that's welcomed. It's kind of interesting how it flips around.
And also a reminder that if you don't feel confident about what you have to say or what you're doing, nobody else is going to feel confident about it either. You can't say, I'm going to launch this service, but I don't really feel confident doing the service. Would you want to hire someone that isn't confident in their service? Like, what if a plumber came to your house and was like, man, I hope I can do this, but I'm really not sure. You would be like, oh my God, I need to hire a different plumber. So, not that you're going to fake it till you make it, but also showing up with the conviction and confidence to match the skill that you have. Or, people love to go along a journey with someone. What if you are learning a new skill? What if you are giving sessions for free or you're making candles for friends? Share that journey because that's what's compelling. So many people want to be entrepreneurs. They want to connect with other people that have similar pain points to them. They'll feel inspired by the fact that you're a work in progress. So I think being really transparent about wherever you are in your journey is going to bring the right audience to you, and you can grow with them.
And then we got this question a few times too. A lot of people feeling very resistant to social media. How do they market if they're not on social media? And I didn't even realize this because I feel like you are on social media, but you're never selling your product on social media. You know what I mean? Like, you're not selling your services on social media. And I was like, wait, Grace is a perfect expander for this. So how do you feel like you market, get clients without needing to sell and market that thing on social media?
So when I decided to go freelance, I was working at like a venture-backed startup. So it wasn't quite corporate, but the company had money and it operated like a real business and everything. And I was so siloed in one position, but I was always somebody that like wanted to do everybody else's jobs because I felt I couldn't do my job well enough unless, other things were done right first, that I was like, you know what, I am not a good fit for one role with one title and a manager and whatever. I really need to be in a space where I can offer different things and test what I like and, use my different skill sets to bolster a project rather than just only doing one thing. So when I decided to take the leap and go freelance, obviously there's that question of like, how are you going to get clients? And this applies whether you're a service provider like me, whether you have a skill like maybe you're a private chef or you're an organizer or maybe you're a coach or you have any skill that you're trying to monetize. What I did was I remember I went to Cat Beauty's website and I looked at all of the beauty brands that they carried because at the time I was really into clean beauty and I just came from working at a beauty startup. And I wrote down a list of all of these small businesses that Cat Beauty carried, right? Because they're a retailer, so they have this curated selection of products from small businesses. And all these small businesses had marketing needs, and they were all different marketing needs. One website might need a total overhaul of their homepage, right? Another company might need influencer marketing. Another company, needs a new packaging, and another company needs email strategy. So what I did was I sort of found all of these small businesses that I knew needed skills that I had, and then I tailor-made a package for them based on what I saw that they needed. So I didn't blast on my social like, hey, everyone, I'm freelance now, get in touch if you want me. Instead, I got pretty strategic about what are the types of companies that I want to work with? How do I present myself as a solution to a problem that I know that they're having? They don't have great marketing, and I know that I can help them come up with a marketing strategy, or they don't have great website. I know that I can do that. Instead of sitting around and waiting for somebody to reach out to me, I really took initiative. And it took like a lot of scrappy behind the scenes work of, okay, I see that this person needs my services. And then I would like go on LinkedIn and see who works for this company. And then I would figure out what's their URL. And maybe their email is alex@apple.com if your URL is Apple. And then I would put it into this mail tester website and I would figure out if that was the right email. And then I'd email multiple people on the team. Like all of that was a big part of my process. And then ultimately ended up using all of those skills when I was doing influencer marketing, right? Because I had to figure out what the influencer's email was and how to reach out to them and whatever. So just in that process of learning how to get clients and trying to get in touch with people, I learned a whole new skill that way. But I never did any social media marketing. I just took hyper initiative and emailed people. And that's actually even how I got connected with TBM is, I found Lacey's blog at the time. I was like, oh, this resonates with me. What do I think they need? I guess they need graphic design, and I can provide that service. So I emailed and I said, I see you could use this. I can do the service. And that's how I got my foot in the door. So if that answers your question, that's sort of how I've gone about getting clients without having to do social media marketing. Then from there, it's just been word of mouth, right? Then I've done projects for companies that have a big name behind them, and I can put that on my website, and people think that that means I'm credible, and so they want to work with me. So I just sort of try to set myself up for success, taking initiative rather than trying to let things come to me.
So basically what you guys are gathering is Grace is a super entrepreneur.
I'm crazy.
But I think this is also helpful. And I also, anyone at home who's like, oh my God, I don't have the time for that. Like, how do I do all of that? That's so much stuff. Just take the bits that really speak to you. If you're like, that's a new way I could navigate this one thing. We're not saying to do all of these things and you can only do these things to be successful, but here are just some tips that we have seen work and have been really, really helpful. Think outside the box. I think that's the main thing is like, it's bolstering your subconscious self-worth to feel confident in your skill set, taking aligned action to get better at your skill set. But then it's like, okay, how can I think outside the box? How can I stand out, whether it's from your product or applying to other companies? How can you really position yourself in a way that is unique and has something to differentiate yourself from other people out there? And I think especially in businesses, especially in spiritual businesses, there's a lot of emphasis on having this spiritual mindset without recognizing the results aspect of it. We're still in a capitalistic society. We still are monetizing skill set for trade, all of those things. You have to have a value. So it's not just, oh, I feel really spiritually aligned and here's this thing. It's like, okay, but what are you bringing to the table? What value can you prove? What can you showcase? That does very well and will take you very far.
And, it's not unspiritual to make money. And if you ultimately think about it as an energetic exchange, I'm giving you my time and you're giving me your time back in the form of money you've made from your time. That is what's going to set both parties in a place of mutual appreciation and value and high self-worth. And the people that aren't willing to pay for your time or your services, they probably don't value their own time. That's something to look at as well. And, there's kind of like an old freelance meme that's like $500 client, they want 100 revisions and they're never satisfied. And then the $50,000 client, they're like, where should I send the check? Because the person that's only willing to spend the tiny amount of money, they're not necessarily in their worth. They don't totally see the value in paying for that skill set. Otherwise, they'd be willing to pay what you're worth in order to get the best result. So that's something to keep in mind. And then as you were talking, I was thinking about, how social media has made us think that to be successful, we have to have 500,000 followers. And that is like a benchmark to where we are, how good we are at everything, how successful we're going to be. And you don't have to have global reach to have a successful business. A lot of the most successful entrepreneurs, a lot of the richest people in the world, they've made all their money from having a localized approach to success. Maybe they own a CrossFit gym, or they are a farmer's market vendor, or they buy duplexes in their area, or they open a small shop, or they're a private chef who's like catering events in their community. Put aside the notion that I have to have 1 million followers to make $1 million, and look at the landscape of what's in front of you in your local community. And that's also how you're going to get experience. It's right in front of you. It's low-hanging fruit. That is how you're going to cultivate a sense of word of mouth and get more business. And then ultimately, if you have a lot of success within that niche, then think about how can I expand beyond my local community. It doesn't always have to be some internet sensation thing right away.
Okay, this was a question that came up a few times. What is the difference in energetics between outbound marketing, saying, sending out those cold emails, sending those pitches to the companies like you were mentioning, and inbound marketing, like knowing that prospects will naturally find you because you're magnetic?
Up front, you're going to need to do outbound marketing. Like, you can't just sit and meditate and say, okay, now I offer this service and like expect people to reach out to you. Be open to the possibility of aligning with the people that want your services, but then be willing to put your services out there. I'm a big believer in like, go to the random party, go work at the coffee shop. You never know who you're going to meet. But then when you meet them, you have to have the gumption to be like, I can change your life, or here's a package that I can sell you, or, oh, you work for this business? Actually, I provide this service, or you're having a party? I make amazing candles. I'd love to give you 10 candles for the party. There's a bit of both of it where you can't just sit at home sending emails and like hope that good energy is going to come to you that way. But you also need to do the upfront work to put yourself out there and energetically communicate to the universe and to other people. I'm open, I'm doing this. I've launched a business, I have these services. And then ultimately, when you've done enough of that, maybe you've put in a couple years of work, maybe you will have more inbound traffic because you've demonstrated that you deliver and that you provide value and other people have liked your services or skills or product. But when you're first getting started, you need to take action. You can't just sit around and wait for the sessions or the services or the sales to come in, because it's like you're sitting in the dark. Nobody even knows that you have this new energy that you're wanting to share. And ultimately, launching a business or a service or a product, your mission is to share something. And so you need to sort of get in the energy of how can I share in the way that feels most resonant and authentic to me? And how do I make sure I'm not hiding?
And then what do you say the difference between that and dog paddling is? Because I can see someone overcorrecting and they're just sending out desperation energy with every single person they're trying to connect with.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of different aspects here. One is, are you providing something that you're not actually good at, or you don't actually have competency in, or
You don't believe you're good at it.
you don't believe you're good at it, and also maybe you're not good at it. I've worked with a lot of marketers who say they can do marketing, but all they can make is mood boards. And ultimately, the mood board isn't going to transfer into anything for the client. It's just pretty to look at, and that's it. And the client actually shouldn't spend their money on that. So I think if you've continued to get the feedback or notice people aren't really seeing results from what you're doing, or they're not renewing their contract, or they're not purchasing anymore, then take inventory of that and be like, okay, where can I pivot? If I'm really good at making mood boards, then how can I reposition my offerings so that instead of saying, I'll help you with marketing, maybe you're helping with photo shoot concepts. So I think that's one way you can check yourself when you're dog paddling. Am I really good at this? Are people seeing the value?
One other thing I just want to touch on too is there's this idea that, if you're in full alignment, everything will come to you and you have to take no action. And as we know in the manifestation process, you have to be expanded, unblocked, and then taking that aligned action. That is such a key component to this. And it's no different in business. And if you guys have ever done the Unblock Money workshop and you understand the career energetics, everyone has feminine, masculine energy within them, regardless of gender or how they identify. But if you think about that masculine energy that you have within you, that is the energy that is going to go out there and seek the opportunity, put themselves into the marketplace. You have to really hone in on that energy when you're thinking about career shifts and moves. You're not in the feminine surrendering. Maybe when you're creating your product, you are. But when you're thinking about putting that into the marketplace, that's that masculine energy. And taking aligned action is so, so important for getting to the next step.
And it's all about the balance, right? Maybe you're a painter and you're selling your art. And when you're creating the art, you're really in your feminine space. But then you need to put on your masculine hat to get into galleries and to sell the artwork and to pitch new pieces to people so they want to hire you for commission. And I think for me, I'm so in my masculine about all of it that I need to get more into feminine receiving when it comes to things like receiving the price that I deserve, or doing work that feels more kind of channeled and creative and expressive and not just so executionary. Everything doesn't have to come in a specific process, but maybe one day I needed to spend the whole morning sitting in the shower and let the ideas come to me instead of trying to human will them out. So maybe taking inventory of, what do I tend to lean more towards? Is it in the masculine or the feminine energy? And then how can I balance that out to get into a place of equilibrium? And I know there's a lot of kind of starving artist types, I put that in air quotes, that don't want to sell their souls, want to be artists, just want to create. But then they get stuck in this rut of not making any money, not monetizing anything, because they're so kind of attached to that almost ego story about how they don't want to sell their soul or sell the integrity of art. But it's better to get into that place of balance so that you can get your art into the world, reaching more people, touching the people it's meant to touch. So thinking about why you're attached to one way of being and then sort of seeing the up and the downside of that, I think is going to be helpful to get you into equilibrium.
100%. Such a good point. And I think that all really goes back down to your authentic needs. In business, it's no different than anything in life. Your job doesn't have to fulfill every single passion, desire. It doesn't even have to be your purpose, but is it fulfilling your needs? Are you making the money you want to live the lifestyle you want? Do you have the balance of time and effort? If you want a really more relaxed lifestyle where you're not working that many hours per week, maybe the traditional entrepreneurial lifestyle is not for you. Is it a more relaxed setting of it instead of a hustling version of it? Are you working for a company where you only have to be in 3 days a week and you can make a high price point amount? So I think it's just understanding, what do you want your lifestyle to look like? How do you want to feel? And come at it from that perspective.
And I think that's a big mistake people make when they launch their own business, is they've been at a corporate job, they've been doing something they don't like, and they're like, I want freedom, I want control, I want creativity. And then they jump into their side hustle or their freelance career and they become a workaholic, and they haven't designed the life that they want. And that totally happened to me. Like, I wasn't living some great digital nomad life. I was just glued to my computer all hours of the day, and I wasn't taking vacations, and I wasn't working out, and I had a suck relationship at the time. I wasn't prioritizing anything else, because then I got addicted to this treadmill of making more money and getting more clients, which taught me a lot about how to do business, but it also taught me a lot about how I didn't want to be and how I didn't want my life to look like. So if I could do it over, I think I would have started that journey with a bit more intention around how do I want to feel every day, and then filled in around that.
Okay, awesome. So stay tuned for part 2, where we're going to cover into pricing, marketing yourself, saying no burnout, and taking that aligned action even further.
Thank you so much for tuning into the episode, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, we did. And in case you're not totally ready to join the pathway yet, I wanted to share a few of our free offerings that I'll often suggest to people as a little bit of a blueprint to get them started on their manifestation journey. The first place I like to direct people completely for free is the motivation. You can see it linked below or on our homepage as our testimony library. And it's categorized by different subjects, whether you're calling in career, money, love, wellness, and much more. When you're reading about a member's experience of what they manifested, you're actually seeing to believe and showing your subconscious that that very thing is possible for you. The second place I like to direct people is to the free clarity exercise, which is also linked below. In it, you get to try our own unique hypnosis process, learn about the science, and some journaling prompts. And the best part about this, you'll get a tiny taste of what it's like to go into your hypnotic state, bring your subconscious forward, and create new neural pathways while receiving clarity. And the third thing, if you haven't listened to it on this podcast yet, please go back to the episode titled Manifestation 101, where you'll learn the basics of neural manifestation to truly understand this process. So go ahead and check out those free resources, the motivation, the free clarity exercise, and the episode Manifestation 101, all linked below. And in an effort to make sure to have representation in this process series, go ahead and submit any process testimonials you have, especially to our LGBTQ+ community, our BIPOC, as well as the Ys, which is anyone in the community who is 45 and over. All right, we'll be back next week.